Lindsey Graham literally said the quiet part out loud, where he said they've got all these minerals. We can't let Putin get that money. He says, Lindsey Graham, we can't let Putin get that money. And he says it.
He's my favorite.
And he says, I would imagine something I should have been is he's a kind of a closeted gay supervillain, which seems like a fun thing to be. Why would we let Putin get that money?
There's something funny about like a feminine male
he's a gay
warmonger.
supervillain, which is great. Yeah. Let Putin get that money. That'd be the best business partners we've ever had.
Trillions and trillions of dollars
in minerals. I love pussy.
Yeah, it's the best.
Trillions of minerals in that Ukraine's wet pussy.
Ukrainian pussy, something.
All right, what it do, everybody? It's your boy LOG from Where There's Smoke. Gonna try out a little bit different style video today. And instead of going live like I've been doing a lot more lately, I'm gonna go ahead and pre-record a video and see how that works out. And maybe try to differentiate between what I do pre-recorded and what I do live, and kind of have a more concerted effort for certain types of videos. So maybe if I'm doing like a deep dive on something, I'll do a pre-recorded. And if it's something that's a more like current topic or something that I really feel like would be effective on a live, kind of like spur of the moment things, I'm gonna try to do those more frequently, and maybe just like shorter and more like up-to-date stuff. And then like the longer videos and the deeper dives do stuff pre-recorded. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. And anyway, this is a breakdown of the Joe Rogan and Tim Dillon podcast that was done on election night. So it's about a month old at this point. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. There's a whole, obviously I'm not going to go over the whole podcast, but it's a good conversation. The whole podcast is worth a watch, but I'm going to just go over quite a few actually points I have in different conversations they were having in little topics where I want to interject and give my thoughts and kind of give my commentary. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into it.
That he's a Hollywood plant. Oh, like those people, they're like, he was a Hollywood plant,
Yeah, those people are fucking hilarious. Every now and then I'll come across a comment of people that think there's some fucking grand conspiracy, like we're all being puppet mastered by manipulated. It's always Jews. So they think the Jews are
it always gets to the Jews.
So they were talking about Tony Hinchliffe at Trump's rally, and like just whether or not, like, who knew he was gonna be there, I guess, essentially. And it is a good point. Like, I don't know. It's interesting because Trump is really tied in with Dana, and then, Dana and Joe Rogan are good friends. So now Rogan and Trump, Joe gave Trump his endorsement, and they're kind of somewhat close. And Joe and Tony have been close. So it's like somewhere in this whole mosh pit of friend of a friend type shit, Tony got the recommendation. And we almost, like, Tony is not dumb. He is an insult comic and a roaster. And he kind of had to know what going on a Trump rally and saying those kind of things was going to be perceived as. And it's almost like someone kind of lined it up for them to hit a home run off of that. And just have something to talk shit about Trump about, like, the week before the election. That was, like, their last little bit of ammo to go at Trump. And it'd be kind of hard for me to think that there wasn't some sort of planning for that to happen, knowing that everybody kind of knows each other. Kind of what I said, that they need a little bit of fodder for Trump the last week going into the election. That was their last little bit of hate fuel for Trump before the election. And anyway, it's just interesting. It'd be hard for me to believe that wasn't planned on some level, and give Tony a little bit of extra just clout and pop culture relevance. So
start somewhere and then go.
But of course, they're here to dispel the fact that kind of stuff even is true, and make it seem like, oh, that's crazy, conspiracies. There's no coordination going on here.
Goes to the Jews.
I forget who told me that. Puppet mastered by
manipulated.
It's always Jews. So they think the Jews are
it always gets to the Jews. It'll start somewhere and then goes to the Jews.
I forget who told me this, but it's like one of the symptoms of a collapsing civilization. They start blaming things on Jews.
Yeah.
It's like one of them is they get very obsessed with gender, and then the other one is they start blaming Jews.
The other thing is
both of those right now.
They make celebrities out of chefs. Like, they get very decadent. This happened in Rome, and there's
really?
Yeah, like they
I think it's interesting how he's saying that chefs become celebrities. But other than that, it's interesting. Why would every collapsing society blame Jews if there wasn't some common thread there? Um, I don't know. It's interesting how they always seem to be tied to the money and a lot of the decision making. So I don't know if someone is always saying something, there might be some thread of truth there. Sometimes you can't just anyway. And then I just think it's funny how they try to dispel the whole Tony. I came in on the end of that because that wasn't even something that I watched on the first time that I thought was going to be something that I wanted to hit on as much, but now watching it through now, it's just kind of interesting that, Tony Hinchliffe was at the Trump rally, said the thing about Puerto Rico is trash, and then, or whatever he said, pretty much like it's a floating island of garbage or whatever. And then, yeah, it just seems pretty hard to believe that wasn't lined up, and in just a way where he could say it was a joke and kind of get away with it, but everyone was real pissed off, and the people that don't know him don't care. He's kind of floated back into irrelevance for them, but the people that love him, it just made him love him more, and it's just another thing that made him more of a legend. So it's interesting how these kind of things work, and yeah, it's hard for me to believe that wasn't like somewhat like coordinated to be like a little just blip in time or moment or whatever. But like he knew getting up there and saying inflammatory shit was going to have a big impact, especially at a Trump rally. And then because it was someone that Trump is quote unquote untied to, Trump could just wash his hands of it and say, "Oh, I don't know anything about this." So anyway, I don't know. It's interesting. It's also funny that like within the first minute or minute and a half, they're already trying to like dispel a couple of conspiracies. And like I do like these guys, especially Tim Dillon as a comedian, and I overall like the Joe Rogan podcast and the idea of it for sure. But if they're not gonna stir up any dust or like go against the powers that be. So like it's not hard for me to believe that they're gonna like try to dispel conspiracies or like what is the term where they're just like basically deflecting. There's like a way better term, but basically they're just deflecting. I'm like, oh yeah, of course that's not what it is. Like, well, of course you two are gonna say that, the two that are benefiting from it and also tied into all that like muck. So anyway, I like these guys, but it's interesting to see like their perspective and like if you're someone that doesn't trust them, how you would view kind of how the conversation is just starting super early.
I'm more and more convinced that ADHD is not real. I think a lot of kids just have a lot of fucking energy, and they're supposed to be doing other stuff. They're not supposed to be sitting at a desk all day.
Put them in the military.
Yeah.
Let them, you know what I mean?
Or let them play video games professionally. They seem to sit real fucking still when they're doing that. How come they're fully engaged when they play video games?
There are people you meet. I have grown friends in my life that are, I'm 39 and they're in their late 30s, and I'm like, the best version of you is dying in the Ukraine. You should.
I just thought it was interesting how Joe said he thinks ADHD might not even be a real thing. That's the thing about Joe. He says a lot of good stuff, and then he says some stuff that you have to really. It's stuff that goes with the popular opinion, but it's stuff that it's false, and he's just perpetrating a falsehood. So that's kind of the thing. But no, I agree with this thing about the kids having ADHD, and I feel like they're quick to throw kids on medication and not really give them an outlet for their energy. So I really fuck with that point.
Voting on. Imagine if you put it up to vote for people like, hey, do you guys think we should fund Ukraine to the tune of $190 billion? Yeah. And maybe have someone else come along and say, this is an alternative of what we could do with that money.
Right. There's no vote on that. There's no vote on a lot of the things that we're told to live with. There's never been a vote on immigration. There's votes for candidates that support it or don't support it, but there's never been a vote on should we secure the southern.
Yeah, they make us vote on candidates that we hope will do things. They don't let us actually vote on what the laws and policies will be, which is a huge thing I've always said, and such a simple thing, simple concept. They're pointed out here, and I totally agree.
Order would unanimously be voted on, and people would unanimously pretty much say absolutely.
Well, how about the voter ID laws?
Yeah.
84% of America think we should have voter ID.
Right.
Yeah, we should have voter ID, and we should have the same. If you're going to have a presidential, which is a nationwide election, the rules need to be the same nationwide. I mean, come on. This is super, super, super common sense stuff that obviously I agree with.
Hidden vote. So there's people that are sick of Trump that are going to vote for her. There's people that are sick of the Democratic Party that are going to vote for him. And then there's probably people that are motivated by Roe v. Wade. Women potentially might vote some.
I think that's the Republicans' biggest fuck up.
It's a huge fuck up. I think suburban women are certainly a big demographic that swings elections. And
how about urban women?
Urban
how about
women,
all women?
all
no,
women
women don't want men telling them what the fuck to do with their bodies.
That's right.
That's what politics is. It's whoever's in power making the rules and telling us what we can do. All of a sudden, because it's something that you've been convinced that's hard-hitting and close to home to you, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, now you're upset. It's been fucked up. They've been deciding what we can go to jail for, what they can write a ticket and fine us for, what they can search our homes for. They make all the fucking rules. You're just mad about this one because they've got you hyped up into believing it's something you should be mad about. I don't believe the rules and what you can do in Texas have changed over the past like 20 or 30 years. We're just convinced that they have. You know, I'm like 90% sure, and I could be wrong about this, but you can only get an abortion in Texas within the first 6 weeks. And I think it's been like that for as long as I can remember, as long as it's been able to affect me. So everyone's like there's been all this change recently. That's just not true. There's something for them to get worked up and mad about. If it was wrong, then it's always been wrong. It's not just wrong recently, and that's something you can pile on the Republicans about. If it's wrong, then it's been wrong.
Especially when men can't get pregnant. It's too fucking convenient.
Well, wait a minute.
Well, that's crooked, because like there could be women in positions of power that send men to war, and no one cares when men have to go to war and fight.
Psychopath. Hold on. What? Wait a minute. I walked into that.
Do you know that they found
abortion
out that
affects
boxer?
Men.
They were trolling a bit too, so I'll go back and like play it through just so y'all can see the clip fully. But people trying to make it like men can't control women's bodies. It's like this cool catchphrase that sounds good, but like everybody can be in politics, men and women, and everyone therefore can be part of like changing laws and making laws. And men are the ones that go and fight and die in wars and have to enter into the draft and that sort of thing. And no one's crying and saying, oh, we should have women in the draft, or, take it easy on men in said area X. Like when it comes to domestic disputes, there's not even a law behind it, but it's just like a lot of times if there's a domestic violence dispute, they believe the woman and the man goes to jail. No one's crying about getting shit like that more fair and straightened out. So they've convinced women that this is an area that they've been getting cheated so that they can be mad, and it's just a selling point of you need to be mad about this. So anyway, if it's been wrong, then it's been wrong for a lot longer than y'all been mad about it. They just are packaging it up in a nice way so that we have something to fight about. Oh yeah, let me go ahead and let it play through because they were trolling it, honestly.
It's too fucking convenient.
Well, wait a minute, psychopath.
Women, fuck up.
It's a huge fuck up. I think suburban women are certainly a big demographic that swings elections. And
how about urban women?
Urban
how about
women,
all women?
all
no,
women
women don't want men telling them what the fuck to do with their bodies.
That's right.
Especially when
you go, girl.
Men can't get pregnant. It's too fucking convenient.
Well, wait a minute, psychopath. Hold on. What? Wait a minute. I walked into that.
Do you know that they...
And Tim Dillon doesn't give a fuck about none of that because he's gay. So that was beautiful about that whole thing. He's like, wait a minute. I thought that was hilarious, kind of.
Found abortion out that affects men as much as it does women.
Of course. Right. Sure.
I don't know. It's such a troll. I don't know which side of it Joe's even on, but it's funny still.
Sure. They found out that boxer that won the gold medal. And
we just all have a good laugh. Fuck yeah, I guess that's all you can do at this point. All right. Next little point.
Do you think an 11-year-old should have a gender reassignment surgery or should take hormones to block their puberty? The vast majority of people would say no. No, they shouldn't. That's a crazy idea.
But the thing is, most people will say something different than they actually feel privately because they don't want to be attacked.
Right.
That's a weird one because the people that will attack you are almost always the people that are pro that shit happening.
Right.
And those are the nuttiest fucking craziest
Those are the people that...
Yeah, the crazies are the one that feel emboldened to speak out and get their way, and like the loudest wheel gets oiled. They just feel like, oh, I'm just gonna speak out and say what I want. My voice is the loudest, and I'm gonna get heard, and that's it. And I feel like the people that know better and want to do better have got to start speaking up, even though we feel like we don't want to step on any toes or blah 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 blah. But evil prevails when the good man does nothing. So we feel like we're just being loving and being kind by not hurting feelings and not saying, letting someone know they're wrong, and yeah, just not hurting someone's feelings. Like, you know, you don't want to be the bad guy in the scenario. You don't want to cause a scene at any said scenario, any said situation. You don't want to be the bad guy. You don't want to disgruntle the copacetic social whatever the fuck it is. So you just kind of chill back. But it's like we gotta find ways and times to pick our battles because, like I said earlier, the evil prevails when the good man does nothing. So if we all just stand aside, then the people that do speak out, the crazies, they get their way.
Will misrepresent you. And right. I have a friend who's, you know, they have very young children. They live in Long Island. And they, you know, there's a book being read about gender identity to like 5 and 6 year olds.
Crazy.
And I'm texting with them and they're going, we're very like liberal people, but we're really confused as to why this is happening. And
well, they let activists get into schools.
That's right.
That's what it is. A lot of these teachers are just activists, and a lot of them don't have fucking kids, and a lot of them are gay.
Yeah.
See, case in point, the people that feel like they know what the right thing to do, they just don't want to be the quote unquote bad guy at the time. They don't speak up. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but it's leading to them just getting walked on, and these evil people are prevailing. So, you know, you say, well, you know, evil prevails when the good man does nothing is a bit of a what would I say, like an extreme, and that's in an extreme time. Well, we're in extreme times. So maybe 30 or 40 years ago, that would have displayed itself in a lot more, not quite as extreme, and a more like just not as heightened, and just kind of like, yeah, there's people doing a little bit of bad because we're not saying anything, but overall it's not that bad because they're doing just a little bit of bad and not that much, and it's not really affecting our society. But now the people, it's a lot more extreme in a lot more ways, so it's affecting us more rapidly and more directly, and just more rapidly, more directly, and it's time for us to start speaking up and not just turning a blind eye to it as much anymore, or it's going to continue to get even worse.
Queer or trans or this or that, or they're a part of the posse.
A lot of them are women too. Here's the other thing: a lot of them are women. Not to blame women, but it's like,
yeah, we live in a society where everything's womanized, and we're taught to be like more agreeable, not hurt anyone's feelings. You're not supposed to be a real disagreeable alpha man that they just put down disagreeableness. Basically, that's the long and short of it. And we got to get back to a healthy amount of that, because when something's wrong, you're supposed to disagree with it. So, let's see.
You got to figure out who's a fucking criminal. Like, I'm all for letting poor people in that want a better life, but I'm not for illegal workers.
Yeah.
Meaning, like, I think those people should be paid what Americans are paid.
Yeah.
I think there should be a standard on this soil. If you live in this fucking country, you should have a working wage. You should, if you're going to work 40 hours a fucking week, you should be able to live on it. You should have health care. You should have all the things that people deserve. Yeah. And I think if you think about the amount of fucking money we spend doing other stuff, we could do that.
Here goes Joe Rogan selling the dream that I would argue is not even possible anymore, because people like him are rich. And the people even worse than him that he hides and defends are rich. So you can't have all these people that are mega rich, and then you say, oh, the average person, like, they're just making it to where the rich are they're monopolizing the money and the way to get rich, basically. So with that being said, they're making it harder and harder for you to come up. And he's like, I think this thing is possible for everyone to just work 40 hours and be able to live. That's not too. It's like, yeah, you're just selling a dream. You're selling another hit off the hopium pipe. But like, are you really like? Are you and the people around you doing stuff to make that more of a reality? Or are you just like feeding us some like bird feed?
That for everybody.
Yeah.
That could be done.
Yeah.
And it would fix a lot of the fucking problems we have with money in this country in the first place. Like the amount of influence that pharmaceutical drug companies have on us is
Yeah, that's crazy. But I just thought it was funny that he's like gonna sell the dream and say like, oh yeah, everybody can live off of like $40 an hour and stuff. Whenever like the price of real estate's going up because corporations are just like ass raping us and creating real big, like, we're supposed to be against monopolies in this country and true capitalism, but when a big corporation can just buy all the single family homes and all the real estate, I don't know if that really is inspiring capitalism and if that's anti-monopoly. And if you're a free market, capitalist that's supposed to be, able to, the American dream is you can just do what you love and start a business, even if it's pretty simple and low scale, and that you can make it in this country. Even if it's just like not making it big, you can feed you and your family pretty well if you do your job well and have a good successful business that's simple and effective. Or if you want to scale it, you can get really big. But it's like, is that shit even true anymore if you'll basically have a chokehold on the real estate market? And that's just one aspect of it that's become blaringly obvious to me and others over the past several years. So with things like that, and then there might be some other things I touch on this video, maybe not as much, but the theme of the channel and how I feel overall. So it's just like with everything y'all got going against us, is this dream really even livable? But of course, he's gonna sell it to us like it is. Someone that's been on TV since they're in their 20s is gonna tell us how possible it is to get rich still today and be an entrepreneur and make it. Even though he wasn't going at that, he was just saying being able to work 40 hours a week and live, which is debatable. You can't just work a bare minimum job 40 hours a week and get by. You basically have to be, what should I say? Yeah, you can't just be a general laborer, like a basic, have a basic job, or just, I don't really want to become a skilled laborer. I just want to have like a basic job or like a average everyday job, and I just want to kind of get by. That is like, it's like, I'm having a hard time vocalizing it because it's like, it's on the borderline if it's doable or not. It's like barely doable. You either gotta have like 2 jobs or be in a relationship with somebody that is also working so that it's doable, or have roommates. Like, you can't just have a bare minimum job and like have your own house and be just chilling. Like, no, you're gonna be struggling with roommates, or have a significant other that also is working, or living with your parents, or some kind of situation. Like, you're not just gonna be working a bare minimum job, 40 hours a week, no skills or base level, and just chilling. Like, that just doesn't happen, and that's what he's advocating for. So it's like the thing, like, and he's saying that that's not what it is, but I'm just saying this is what we should be able to do, is what he's saying. But it's like, yeah, you're just selling a dream that's never really going to be possible. That's what I'm arguing. And I would even argue further, like I do with, as I was alluding to earlier, the whole theme of the channel and how I point out stuff and blah, blah, blah. I would argue he's even part of the reason that it's going to stay the way it is. Because I maybe not have broken down this as much as I should, and maybe that'll be a theme that'll be a theme of the channel going forward more, is just showing like how Joe Rogan is. Maybe I pointed that out sometimes during the Trump thing, but like, Joe Rogan is not like a through and through truther. He's not a good guy. He's not someone that like is a national treasure and a fucking hero and someone that's all about the truth and all these good things we would hope about him. He's not that. So maybe I'll do some more digging and show more ways and reasons of why that's not true. Some of it was shown in evidence in the Trump thing. When he had Jack Dorsey on the first time, he just got flamed in the comments over how he was not really doing worth a shit. So there's some big key moments that would show that. But anyway, I've rambled on enough about Joe Rogan not being who he presents himself to be, and who the best version of who we would hope he would be is. So anyway, but he's selling the dream heavy here, and fuck him.
If somebody reputable starts talking about UFOs, you can co-opt the person and say, hey, want to know UFOs? We'll show you the real deal. But not only can you never talk about it publicly, you have to be a debunker publicly.
I'll tell the government right now, tell you right now if you're listening, NSA, CIA, I'm available, okay? If you show me all the real wreckage, I swear to God, I will make fun of that crap to the end of time. I'll make up stories. I'll lie to my mother. I don't care. You show me a UFO, I'll lie to my mother. I swear to God, I will make fun of that crap to the end of time. I'll make up stories. I'll lie to my mother. I don't care. You show me a UFO, I'll lie to my mother.
Talks like that in the Democratic Party, Bernie Sanders was doing it, they get rid of him.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
You thought he was interesting. You endorsed him. You said he would be a very interesting...
Bernie is the little puppet they bring out every time just to give a few people on the Democrat side that are like not as crazy, just to give them like a little hope.
Interesting candidate.
Well, I liked his idea.
He's hope porn, or however you say it. Like, he's just...
idea of making things easier for poor people.
That's right.
I think giving people a path to get out of abject poverty is a good idea. And his idea...
Man, here he goes again, selling the dream. How hard of it is an idea to make things easier for poor people? I don't even know if we should make things easier for poor people. We should just make things harder for people to monopolize being rich. That's what we should do. That way it gives everyone... It's never going to be fair, but quote unquote a fair chance. Just don't make it like super unfair. I saw Asmongold. I've been watching him a little bit recently. I just recently found out who that guy is. But anyway, he brought up the Call of Duty or like gamer reference of like spawn trapping. It's like make it to where they can't just spawn trap the fuck out of you, basically, and like make it somewhat fair. I don't know if it needs to be any easier on poor people. Just don't make it super easy on the rich people to stay rich and like just fuck us. Let's see. Like I said, again, I'm jumping around to avoid copyright and just kind of hitting the key points that I've found were interesting and entertaining on my first watch through. But if you're a fan of either one of these guys, like I'm being super critical, but I overall am a fan of Tim Dillon. Joe, I'm a fan of the show and the show format, but of him, it's harder and harder for me to be a fan of him personally, knowing that he knows all the things that he does know and not being truthful with the general public and the audience, which I think is a liability at this point with how like bad the world is. But that's like a personal stance that I take. So anyway, let's see. But anyway, this is just a little bit about Trump. But yeah, I was saying all that to say, if you find any of this interesting or whatever, go watch the full interview. It was a pretty good one. They had like fun. They had a good conversation, and I enjoyed it. So anyway, but these are just kind of the highlights of stuff that I've had opinion on and wanted to break down.
You know, the media, and that's the other thing with
a map popped up.
I think Trump's, you know, the advantage, he's also running against the media, and the media is terrible. Yeah. And I think one of his big advantages has been, you know, he's been able to kind of call them out successfully multiple times.
Yeah.
And so it's not just he's running against Kamala Harris, he's running against hostile media that does a terrible job at reporting facts when it comes to him. Well, now, Donald Trump says wild shit, and some of it, a lot of it stands on its own as wild and crazy.
Yeah.
But when they manipulate it, you know, Piers Morgan the other night when he goes, there'd be a bloodbath in the auto industry if I'm not elected.
They just make it super easy, like T-ball. Like I was talking about earlier, I don't remember, with like the Trump and Tony thing, but like this is even more, like they're just lining it up for him. Like they're making it so obvious that what they're doing is like not honest news reporting, and that they're just being like sloppy as fuck, and like it's like the Little Rascals. They like rub a noogie in your hair and then you fucking give them a wet willy. It's like, this is like little kid shit. Like obviously they don't report, they make it so fucking obvious that they're trash. It's easy for Trump to point out their stuff. It's like, I don't know, they just dumbed this down to like minor league.
Right. And then they just say, oh, there's Trump, if he's...
Can't you see that the media and Trump are just jacking each other off and working together?
Not elected, there's going to be a bloodbath.
One of the reasons why I was willing to endorse him was watching Obama repeat the lie that he said that white supremacists, that there's very fine people on both sides.
Right. Yeah.
They drove that lie into the ground. And now Joe Rogan's like, that's one of the reasons I was able to support him, because they repeated that. You're just a bot waiting to fall into the trap like everyone else. Like, Joe Rogan's just perpetrating, and like, he's almost like fulfilling the role of like the stupid dad. Oh, that just made me want to support him even more. Dude, they debunked that thing like 4 years ago so many times. When Obama said it recently, that you should have just rolled your eyes and laughed at it. That shouldn't have pushed you towards Trump. You're just like doing what they want you to do.
That's a terrible lie. He literally says, I'm not talking about white supremacists and the KKK. Those people should be condemned.
That's right.
That's what he says.
Yeah. Well, and that's
what
whole
he's talking
thing.
about was the people that were coming.
Why do you even care? Shouldn't you know there's just bullshit that he's bringing that up to piss people off, and that it's been debunked so many times that it's ludicrous that he even brings it up? It should be like laughable when he says it. And you just like laugh it off and be like, wow, I can't believe that even affects people anymore. Because I've heard that lie so many effing times.
Coming to protest the fact that a statue is being taken
What's
down.
interesting about Trump is
because I'm pretty sure I've heard Joe talk about him debunking this thing on his podcast many times before.
one of his biggest advantages has always been that the press cannot help themselves when it comes to him. They are rage addicts and they like hating him, and he feeds them, and they get more popular and they get bigger.
It's like the biggest circle jerk ever. Come on, dude.
When he is around.
Well, when he lost the election, CNN dropped 40%.
That's right. So
like right away.
They're addicted to being in a, hostile, contentious relationship with him, and they misrepresent a lot of what he says.
Just flat out.
I mean, yeah. It's just, I said what I had to say earlier, but it's like a team. It's like, imagine you're watching a basketball game and it's the Lakers versus the Spurs, and one of the Spurs guys is a double agent and he's working for the Lakers, and 3 or 4 times a game, whenever Kobe goes to the rim, he just gets out of Kobe's way and just lets him go. Or 3 or 4 times whenever Robert Ory's shooting a 3, he just doesn't guard him. It's like they're just faking that they're on opposite teams and they're setting each other up for the lob. Like, come on, dude.
Lies.
And that's a huge problem, and they can't help themselves. If they got out of the way, it would hurt him, because
they need Trump to hate on. It's a huge thing for the people on the left. They need someone to hate on, and Trump is an easy big retard for them to hate on.
Like any politician, then you're just going to be dealing with other politicians or your supporters or your detractors or whoever.
Yeah, that's the thing too. It makes it easy on Trump. He just has the media is so obvious that they're terrible. He just has a punching bag to punch up on. It's like that way for both of them, though. He's so terrible to the people that hate him, and the media is so terrible to the people on the right that hate them, that they both just have a big punching bag. Trump, that's a great point by Tim. Trump doesn't even have to deal with individual people or stuff like that. He just deals with the media, and they're terrible, so it just gives him a automatic leg up to his supporters that already don't want to believe the media.
But you have this media that's lying about you, and you can constantly call it out. It helps him.
I think the cat's out of the bag, though, with the media.
It's over.
It's over.
It's big time.
I mean, the video that I did with Trump is well over 100 million views.
Yeah.
Between Twitter and YouTube and Spotify, well over 100 million. The one I did with Elon just yesterday was this morning. It had 65 million views just on Twitter.
I don't want to upstage you. The video that I did with J.D. Vance got 3 billion views.
Woo! He had to fuck Joe up because he was fucking feeling himself a little too much.
Got 3 billion views.
Nice.
So I don't want to upset you.
I don't want to upset you. I love that. That's why I fuck with Tim Dillon. He's fucking funny as shit. Oh, man. I don't want to upset you. Oh, that was good. Because Joe was fucking kind of feeling himself a little bit.
The problem is that the intelligence agencies are completely unaccountable.
Yeah.
Meaning that there's been no accountability at all for anyone who suppressed the laptop story. I mean, where is this Kim Cheadle woman who, she's the head of the Secret Service, the craziest thing in the world?
The sloped roof lady?
The sloped roof. I've taken gravity bong hits on acid on roofs that have more of a pitch than that. And I didn't fall off. I'm not exactly a Navy SEAL, and I was able to do it.
They had snipers on a similar roof that had more of a pitch to it.
The whole thing is as shady as humanly possible. He was cremated. The house was...
In 11 days, the house was professionally scrubbed.
And
everything about this was shady as F, and your government has no accountability. The investigation was like none. The news coverage was like none after the first week or two. They had some bullshit hearing where they were somewhat accountable about the actual event, but I haven't heard anything since about them actually investigating into anything about the situation behind Tommy Crooks or what really happened with that Trump assassination. It's just crazy to think about that's how little effort they put into that.
And then nobody talks about it.
Well, did you see the cell phone data that shows that someone
was meeting up with him at FBI or close to
the FBI offices, was meeting up with them on a regular...
I don't know anything about that, but I'd love to see the info they're talking about on that for sure.
Basis.
Where is this woman?
He's in a BlackRock commercial.
The whole thing is weird, and then it's beyond strange.
It's Lee Harvey Oswald 2024.
It's fucking crazy, and he has no digital footprint.
Crazy.
The kid was in a BlackRock commercial, and he has no digital footprint. And I don't know about what they're talking about with him meeting up with someone from the FBI, but that would be all-time crazy. But everything about this stinks to high heavens.
This
is the first Trump assassination that they're commentating on.
Few people that age that have no digital footprint.
Right.
And then if you talk about any of this or you say anything, people write it off as sort of a QAnon, whatever. But it isn't. It's valid, legit, and people, normies, people that don't think like this.
No, there's so much shady about that. It stinks to high heavens.
Are even going, that was fucking weird.
It's just weird that they never had a press conference. They never had a toxicology exam that was released.
Yeah.
There was no, like, someone wants to shoot the president. Wouldn't you assume that person's out of their fucking mind? Maybe they're on meth. Maybe we can find some sort of a reason while we feel a little bit better.
And then the next guy was a guy who, like the Three Stooges, a barrel of a gun is going through the bushes on a...
I could not agree more. That's basically exactly what I said when the story broke and I heard about it.
On a golf course.
Yeah.
Like something out of the Marx Brothers. And that guy was...
sticking his gun through a chain link fence out of the bushes.
A guy that like CNN or MSI, I forget which one, had been speaking to about like the Ukraine. He wrote like a song about the Ukraine and how important it was to support the Ukraine. And he was being like interviewed by the news, like a cable news, and they had a relationship with him. And imagine if Fox News had a relationship with somebody who tried to assassinate Obama, Biden, Harris.
Right.
Yeah, that would be fucking insane.
Right.
That you would have never heard the end of it.
Right. Exactly.
Most people hearing this, maybe you're hearing this for the first time, but like this was like a source or this guy that they kind of profiled. And, you know, it came out that he was, and then his kid got busted for child porn.
Wild.
Just like Stephen Paddock's brother.
Yes, that's what's wild.
I'm just saying.
Hey, how much do you know about the...
It's crazy because there's all this stuff that, you know, they're like... I don't know, man.
Vegas thing.
That he was, and then his kid, but like this was like a source or this guy that they kind of profiled. And, you know, it came out that he was, and then his kid got busted for child porn.
Wild.
Just like Stephen Paddock's brother.
Yes, that's what's wild.
I'm just saying.
Hey, how much do you know about the Vegas thing? Is it true
Not
that
enough,
there's
but
3 women that were checked
before.
into the room with him? I was reading this thing the other day about how there's 3 unaccounted for women that apparently checked into the room with him.
Interesting. I don't know that, but
what's that, Jamie?
I've never heard that.
You never heard that?
I've researched a lot. I mean, there is cell phones.
They're talking about the Vegas shooter that happened, I believe, in 2017 at like a country music concert.
I think that were found that were.
But I just think it's interesting. They'll list off all this stuff that's super shady about the Trump shooter. And, man, what am I trying to say and get at? I just feel like it's hard to even know what to believe anymore, and a lot of times you can get in trouble with believing what you want. Like you hear something that verifies what you want to believe, you cling on to that because it's confirmation bias. Um, like there's basically people that believe in Trump, like have everything good to say about him, and will like, for instance, the 32 felonies. Like it's hard to nail down if someone supports him, like, because I've talked to someone that didn't support him. Like no one knows like the long and short of like what actually happened. Okay, we know it was for business deals or paying off Stormy Daniels or taxes or whatever, but like no one knows like what actually happened and like why he didn't go to jail for it. And that's just a reason where you can have like deniability, like, well, he was convicted but he didn't go to jail, so what does that even mean? Like it's to the point where like reality is so fucky. Like, oh, Trump was on the Epstein list, but then people say, well, was he? Or, well, he went somewhere, but like, there's an excuse and like a way that you can justify or lie, or like, not lie, but like, basically all this stuff is so far away from our lives that you can like add a caveat to anything and twist it to where it goes to what you want to believe already. So I think that makes it so hard to discern truth in this day and time. But I don't know, when you catch someone in a simple lie, I guess that's when you have to really like just kind of hang on to that. And like, man, it's so hard with that being said, because like I find that when I guess I'll finish this point up and get back to the video, but I find this when I'm debating with people, or more or less just having conversations about things we hear and how we view things, and like this person, that person, Biden, Trump, even someone like Joe Rogan, maybe Neil deGrasse Tyson. Are they good people? Or are they really looking out for us, discerning the truth the most? You can tell someone so many things, but for every point you have, they can have a counterpoint of why that's not, why that evidence is not quite as damning as you think it is. Well, they always have like a caveat, like I was saying earlier, or they can, to keep believing the way they already believe. So, I don't know, in this era of like all the information, it's hard to really drill down on the simple, hard, concrete facts and get to a level of understanding and truth that's universal, rather than all this stuff that can be caveated to the nth degree, and we never really get to a common ground of understanding. You know, yeah, I think at the end of the day, this is kind of a super oversimplified thing, but it's like I was saying, we're trying to get to the base, hard, concrete truth. And a lot of times that's the most simple, which is all these politicians are liars. Not just Trump and the Republicans, or not just Biden and the Democrats, or whatever. All of them are liars, and they're all in it together. And that almost seems like too nefarious and too simple, but that's most likely to be the truth, because any of the rest of it, you have to have all these little caveats, and you start getting in the muck too. And then it's hard for you to really see when you're in the muck that you are. And then, you know, I could say more and more, but I feel like I kind of summed it up as best I could right there. So let's see. Anyway, they were talking about, you know, how your government's not accountable, and kind of like the Trump shooting and the Vegas shooting. And then I kind of got off on a tangent about kind of how things can be caveated for you to remain believing what you believe, I guess. Confirmation bias, more or less, but, you know, kind of, I had a little tangent on it. So anyway, but also I wanted to just hammer home at that point kind of before they were talking about, is your government's not really accountable for any of this shit. The investigations that they've had for the Trump shooting and the Vegas shooting have been like piss poor, and they've even tried to cover up a lot of stuff on social media and people commentating about it so that they don't have to investigate, which is very, very suspicious. And, you know, why would, you know, that's just total ass, honestly.
Know enough about it, but it was a very strange thing that
it just doesn't make any sense.
Has never been fully. I mean,
is he just shooting at a concert? Like what?
supposedly he lost his mind and then he just wanted to kill everybody. And
here's the thing, though. That's real, too.
That's real, too.
That's real, too. And if you really wanted to make a splash and you knew you're going to kill yourself and you were some fucking psycho and you just wanted to gun down a bunch of people, then bang. Let's see what's next.
It's one of those things where it disappears, and then the thing about all of this is
they fucking strung Alex Jones out to dry, which he's a plant on their side, but they made him look bad, and they used him as an example to where if you try to really question these school shootings on like a thorough level, or any kind of big shooting, and matter of fact, not just a school shooting, but if you try to question those on a big level and really do a deep dive and legitimately question what the hell's going on, they're not having that. And they're not going to let you do that. That's kind of what the shaming of Alex Jones was all about, if you didn't know.
The news moves so quickly and so much is going on. You can't, it gets hazy, the recollection of it. Like the Trump shooting even, the recollection will get hazy. In a few months from now, forget a few years, even in a few months, the idea of it being a slope roof, people don't remember.
Right.
People just remember a guy climbed on a roof. They don't remember it was 120 yards away. The Secret Service didn't clear the roof. He was walking around. People were telling them there's a guy walking around. He's creepy. He flew.
Yeah, there was so much terrible about that we're going to all forget the little details of like how just weird it was, that basically bringing into question, like, was it orchestrated on some level, and all that's just going to end up getting washed under the bridge because you don't have people that can really do deep dives and get more or less to where we know within 80 or 90% of one of two things happen. We know it wasn't what they said. Thing A, B, or C happened, or whatever the case may be, but we don't have people that can do the deep dives and really get to the bottom of it. We can, but if you get to a big level where you have a big audience and you're really doing a deep dive on stuff like that, they're not going to allow that to continue. So yeah, it gets forgotten. It gets washed under the bridge. And most of all, your government is damn sure not accountable.
Drone over the area.
He had a rangefinder.
Yeah. All of those details that are very important.
But the rangefinder's nuts. Like,
it's
anybody
crazy.
with a rangefinder should be arrested.
Right.
If you have a rangefinder and you're walking around an area where the president or a president candidate is going to be, you should be
detained,
arrested.
Yeah.
Someone should find out what you're doing, what you're up to.
And didn't he have explosives in the car?
Yeah. He had explosives, and they're sophisticated with radio-controlled devices. He had remote-controlled explosives. Like, how is he getting that? He's 20 years old.
Yeah.
Like, what Google search do you have? Like, where are you ordering these things? Are you putting them together?
Yeah.
Had someone manufacture it for you? Who'd you buy it from? Where's the investigation?
Nothing.
That's crazy. It's so crazy. As Willie D would say, you're a government.
To drain the Russian military over a land border with Ukraine. We have zero. And the reason is BlackRock and all these companies are being promised a lot of land in the Ukraine. They're being promised Ukraine's a breadbasket of Europe. There's tons of agricultural land. A lot of it has a ton of value. There's minerals.
Yeah.
Lindsey Graham, Jamie probably has that quote where Lindsey Graham literally said the quiet part out loud, where he said they've got all these minerals. We can't let Putin get that money. He says, Lindsey Graham, we can't let Putin get that money. And he said,
I love that. We can't let Putin get that money.
Lindsey Graham literally said the quiet part out loud, where he said they've got all these minerals. We can't let Putin get that money. He says, Lindsey Graham, we can't let Putin get that money. And he says it.
He's my favorite.
And he says,
that's my favorite too. But he's just talking about how crooked the Ukraine war is, and it's all about like not letting Putin get that money, not about whatever's doing what's right, etc.
It, and he's saying it out loud, and so a lot of people are just like, listen, and
can't let Putin get all that money. He says that at another point in the interview that we'll let play too. It's just kind of funny. Again, why I fuck with Tim Dillon? Let's see.
Lindsey Graham talk. Let me hear him talk.
Ukraine. I am for Ukraine support. We can't pull the plug on Ukraine, let Putin get away with this. We need to be all in with the goal of allowing Ukraine to evict the Russians.
Pause for a second. Tell me you couldn't picture that guy with a ball gag and like leather type
that's the
bikini
least
on.
of what he has. But Jamie, there's another thing where he literally talks about the minerals, the rare earth minerals that are in the Ukraine, which is the entire reason. It's like I put it on my Instagram. It's like it's one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
Yeah,
this one right here.
Ukraine sits on. Go back up to the top where it said it.
They're sitting on $1 trillion worth of minerals that could be good to our economy. So I want to keep helping our friends in Ukraine.
They're sitting on $10 to $12 trillion of critical minerals in Ukraine. They could be the richest country in all of Europe. I don't want to give that money and those assets to Putin to share with China. If we help Ukraine now, they can become the best business partner we ever dreamed of.
There we go.
Pause. How crazy is that guy? And how crazy?
I don't want to give Putin all that money.
Crazy is his job.
Yeah.
International fuckery.
Yeah.
Money and
well, he's
minerals
kind of,
and...
I would imagine something I should have been is he's a kind of a closeted gay supervillain, which seems like a fun thing to be. Why would we let Putin get that money?
Is he supposed to be married?
Let Putin get that money.
Isn't he married?
Find out.
But I mean, it's a fun thing, and
there's something funny about like a feminine male
he's a gay
warmonger.
supervillain, which is great.
Yeah.
Let Putin get that money. They'll be the best business partners we've ever had.
Trillions and trillions of
Trillions
dollars
of minerals.
in minerals.
I love pussy. Trillions of minerals in that Ukraine's wet pussy.
Ukrainian pussy, something.
It's crazy. But then you think about it, and there's all these young Ukrainian men.
That's so funny. All right. Enough of that dumbass shit.
Be private because he's stupid famous.
Of course.
So when you're a fucking politician and you're a part of an industry that has existed in these shadows for decades, doing things outside of the public's knowledge, the full integration of the intelligence agencies and the deep state, and everybody's got dirt on everybody, and there's madams and fucking there's all kinds of hookers and crazy shit going on.
Right.
You know, so many people make it through that are like the Anthony Weiner guy, absolute freaks.
Yeah.
And they're in there. They're in there deep. So it's not just one of those. There's probably a fucking shitload of them.
It's an economy.
They keep each other's secrets, and they probably get together and they put on masks and fuck each other, just like eyes wide shut.
Yeah,
it's probably real. It's probably otherwise. What are they doing it for?
It's a good point. What is the point?
How do you let your hair down?
Well, that's the whole thing with the Obama chef. People go,
so what are you telling us, Joe? And like, I'm not okay with that. But he acts like he is. You know what I mean? It's almost like I was saying earlier. He is on the same side as the creeps that run the show. Or, you know, he's teamed up with them on some level. And for him to just like say that, like, oh, the people that run things, if they go to a party and get weird and quote unquote let their hair down and do stuff that we view as like perverse or not okay, well, they're just cutting loose. It's okay. It's like, no. And like, you're just kind of like, it's almost like he's trying to train us to think that it's okay too, like a soft disclosure, and just plan it in your mind to think like him, like, oh, it's okay. And you just think, oh yeah, you know, whatever. That, you know, there's so many ways that you could rationalize that in your brain, but just no, you know. But that's what he's trying to get you to do by putting it out there in such a cool way. And if you already like are a fan of Joe Rogan and etc., then you're gonna like, you might try to find a way, like I was saying earlier, confirmation bias type shit or whatever. If you're under a certain spell of not thinking for yourself, you're just gonna try to fit that into your thinking model. Oh, like Joe Rogan thinks it's cool and okay, maybe it is. Like, so what if they're, you know? Anyway, I said, like I was saying, you can find a million ways to rationalize it, but should you? You know, we should always just be questioning everything.
That's the thing. It's like, I think that there's a deep misunderstanding of what this place is. And it's not only, it's not only like crazy, like, oh, it's sex parties and stuff like that. But we're doing a lot of things all over the world that people don't really know about. Nobody's abreast of what we're doing.
Right.
We're doing things in Africa. We're doing things here. We're doing things there.
Right.
We've got we got a footprint everywhere.
100%.
And we're backing people that sometimes they're people we align with our values. A lot of times they're not, right? Like the whole Israel-Gaza thing is a big problem for Harris. It's a major issue. We're doing things here. We're doing things there. Doing a lot of, not only, there's a deep misunderstanding of what this place is. And it's not only, it's not only like crazy, like, oh, it's sex parties and stuff like that. But we're doing a lot of things all over the world that people don't really know about. Nobody's abreast of what we're doing.
Right.
I think people know. They just, I kind of get what he's trying to say. We don't remember like the weird crooked things that we do all over to make sure America stays afloat, and we just kind of live our lives with blinders on, and we don't know that, yeah, America's crooked. There's a lot of crooked stuff for this nation to stay how it is. And I don't know if it necessarily has to, but it is, and we just kind of lie to ourselves about that.
Yeah.
Do I have hope for CNN? Like, I think I do.
Yeah.
I think CNN probably recognizes, hey, we have to actually just say the fucking news, except for about pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah.
But everything else, just say the news.
And I don't know what Trump...
He is so crooked. He had to slip in that little thing about something about we're on pharmaceutical drugs or something. It's just like, why do you have hopes for CNN? Just let it fail. If it's ass and it's bad, just like let it go. He's such a fucking bot sometimes. Don't forget who he works for.
I'm fine with that. No one's going to mandate Taco Bell. That's the thing.
But there is something. You go to Australia and it's a nanny state. Nobody's allowed to do anything. But you know what? They're kind of hot, all of them.
Not only that, they have grass-fed beef in their burgers.
I know.
My buddy Adam came over here and he always gets a quarter pounder with cheese in Australia, whatever the fuck they call it. And he said, he goes, dude, I had one over here. It tastes like cardboard. It was fucking terrible. He goes, back home, it's like fresh grass-fed beef.
Well, also, they'll pull you over. If you're driving in Australia, they just have DWI checkpoints no matter who you are, and you'll just go through them and blow. And obviously, I'm against that because I think it's, it's like infringing on your freedom. But they love it there.
Well, they don't have guns.
They go, we love it, and they go, we feel safe. But it's also, they've just accepted it.
Well, they've gotten accustomed to it. But
they've gotten accustomed.
It's crazy how, like, on lockdown in Australia, and they really felt it during COVID. They couldn't do shit over there.
Like that. It's literally a prison colony.
Yeah, but they don't care. That's the thing.
But they do.
Do they?
They do. They're
I
very
talk
upset.
to Australians, and they're like happy with it.
My buddy wants to move here.
Of course he does, because he's your buddy. But most of them are like not that bothered by it. They don't care.
I wonder if that's true.
Yeah, I just don't know.
It's their reality. It's the reality that they live in, and
because they look at us and they go, "You guys have school shootings. You have poison food, and you get to work and drop dead and all that stuff." We are nannied, which I would never want to live there. But I don't know. I talk to people there. They go, "Yeah, they're nannied. They don't let us do things like they regulate the food, or they have the DWI checkpoints, but they kind of accept it."
Interesting.
Yeah, it's what you're brought up to condition to accept. So we should just think twice about the conditioning we have over here before we accept it.
So you think does anyone concede tonight? Does anyone have a victory speech?
No, I think it takes days.
North Carolina is the first to call, they say.
What was the longest one? Was the dangling Chads one?
Yeah, that was 2 months. It was hilarious. SNL was doing really funny stuff. That was when Will Ferrell was Bush.
Did you hear what happened with SNL with her? So yeah, SNL violated him.
They should have given him equal time.
So they have to run ads for him now.
That is really funny.
They had to run like some 90-second ad. Is that true?
This is just kind of service level shit, but I just find it interesting that since Kamala Harris was on SNL, that the network NBC had to give Trump some free ad time to compensate, which I think is, in the grand scheme of things, they try to make it seem like it's all honest and fair and blah blah blah. But I just thought that was kind of like interesting. But that's pretty surface level shit.
Find out if that's true. Is it true? Yeah, I read it on Twitter, but
That's just such a small, insignificant thing that it just makes you think, oh, yeah, it's fair. Like, it's Like, if you have any want to buy into the system, I guess that can make you want to believe that something like, oh, it's fair, but it's like that's just something that's so low that just doesn't even matter, I would say.
Be some Chinese bot planting stuff in my feed, so I say stupid
I wonder if
things.
they're watching our election.
100%.
He's watching.
Like this, like imagine voting.
Right.
Imagine just let these fucking dumbasses pick who gets to fucking run the military.
I want to go there so bad. Have you ever gone there?
No. I went to Taiwan once, but it was.
It's funny. Like, imagine, like Joe said, the other people that run countries in other like parts of the world, like voting to them is like a funny idea. Like, do you think the people that run this country would honestly leave it up to us to choose who we want to run the country? Like, come on.
Like this, like imagine voting.
Right.
Imagine just let these fucking dumbasses pick who gets to fucking run the military.
I want to go there so bad. Have you?
Running
shit. It's
How about
82
that?
degrees in New York City right now. I don't know if it matters who wins the election.
You know what's worse than 82 degrees?
Yeah.
Minus 82 degrees. Everybody's scared of global warming. Listen, you don't want the fucking ice age.
Nobody wants the ice age.
Yeah, but these fucking eggheads want to spray shit in the sky to protect us from the sun's rays.
Well, nobody wants that. But it just feels like eventually the planet will expel us.
Nah.
You don't think so?
No.
You don't think the planet will get rid of us?
The only thing that's going to happen to us, look, the planet could fuck us up if the planet hits us with the big one that could get us for sure.
Because everyone knows, especially the more you know and you start to figure out, you'll find out that we can't leave this place. So that's kind of why Joe's like, yeah, of course I don't want it to be poisoned. And then he's like, well, we can go somewhere else. Like, no. It's like, no, we can't go anywhere.
No. Fucking eggheads want to spray shit in the sky to protect us from the sun's rays.
Well, nobody wants that. But it just feels like eventually the planet will expel us.
Nah.
You don't think so?
Nah, because it can't expel us. There's nowhere to go.
No.
You don't think the planet will get rid of us?
The only thing that's going to happen to us, look, the planet could.
It can't get rid of us. That's why he's so confident in saying that. He knows that we can't go anywhere. There's nowhere to go. There is no outer space. He knows. That's also why he doesn't want the chemtrails to get sprayed, because he knows that there is no escaping here and going somewhere else. We're stuck with what we got here. So if we get poisoned, we're fucked.
Could fuck us up if the planet hits us with the big one that could get us for sure. Oh, I'm on Do Not Disturb. Hold on a second here. The big one that could get us for sure is
an asteroid. Yeah.
Or super volcano. Either one of those could really, really fuck us up.
Yeah.
Because those are real and those happen all the fucking time. So that's our number one.
But then he comes back with an asteroid, which is all bullshit.
One problem is a natural disaster, a supernova in a nearby galaxy.
And I like how he's the one who's able to say, like, oh, no, that wouldn't happen, but this is what could. Like, calm down, Tim Dillon. I'm the authority on this bullshit of, like, what could really fuck us up. Just got to let you know who's the grand wizard of this whole fucking thing they got going here.
Would kill us. Any sort of like real blast from the sun would wipe out all our communication system and our grid. There's things that have definitely happened in the past that if they happened today, we'd be fucked.
He knows space is fake and we can't go anywhere, but then he's going to do a bunch of stuff to reiterate how space is real. An asteroid could hit us and we're fucked. A big explosion from the sun. It's like, it doesn't work that way. Nothing works that way. He's so full of shit. Look at him.
But I think our biggest threat is us. I think our biggest threat is these crazy motherfuckers that are making all sorts of money off of war, and they keep pushing these agendas in these countries, and they're pushing international conflict that we're all involved in.
Absolutely.
And it's nuts, and I don't think it's going to last much longer, and I think that's where they're getting hyper-focused on getting things done right now. I don't think you're going to be able to do this when you have sentient artificial intelligence. I think that...
We'll see. It's almost like they give us problem and offer solution. So they have the problem of like endless wars. They're going to give us the solution of like all being uniform and all be under one leader, which is also shit.
That is the end of all that. That's the end of all this global thermonuclear war. That shit's all going to go away. I think what they're doing right now is this mad dash to control as much resources and power and money as possible before the entire fucking world changes.
Yeah.
And you have robot aliens living amongst us. Elon said yesterday that he thinks that, what year did he say? How many years? 20 years from now? There'll be more robots in Earth than there will people, or in America.
Wait a minute.
And that's not a good thing.
Wait a
More
minute, hold
robots
on.
than
In
people.
20 years?
What was the year? What was the timeline he gave us?
10 to 20 or something.
10 to 20 years, there will be
does
more
he mean
robots,
like,
like Tesla robots. These
Wow.
robots he's making. I said, and I was like, imagine if you just robot bodyguards. You walking down the street, you got 2 Terminators with you.
Yeah.
Like,
Is this
nobody's gonna
good
fuck with you.
though? Him doing all the robot, like let's bring all the.
Better than a lot of other people doing it.
Yeah.
He's moral and ethical about these ideas. He's one of the
Is he?
first people to sound the alarm about artificial intelligence.
That's good. That's important.
He was like, you're gonna make our successor. Like, and these fucking people are just running towards this cliff, and
but
no one knows where it
believes that we
takes
got to
us.
merge, right?
Well, he believes now, because he's running his own AI, the large language model that they use for Twitter, Grok, and he's got another startup is involved with NVIDIA.
So long story short, even though he's the one who was warning about AI, he's the one that's moving to interlock technology, computing AI with humans, and also in a more physical, like cyborg way. So not only mental, but also physical. So even though he warned against it, he's one of the main ones doing it. Long story short, right, Rogan?
I think he feels like he was an early investor in OpenAI, and I think he's suing them right now because it's not OpenAI anymore. Now it's like a private company. It's the whole situation with whether or not
It's always hard to get a straight answer, isn't it? But the answer is pretty much what I just said. Even though Elon was supposedly one of the first ones to quote unquote warn against it, now he's one of the main ones working on robotics, working on Neuralink, and in the AI field, especially he's one of the top ones at the forefront of leading edge technology. So, I don't think he's to be trusted at all. Especially, I don't know if I've covered this other times, but like he had that interview with Don Lemon where he tried to make it seem like it was just crazy and ridiculous that Don Lemon would ask him if he was teamed up with Trump or going to endorse him or they were friends or he was going to give him money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then within 6 months, here he is endorsing Trump and going to work for him in his cabinet or what have you. So, Elon's definitely not the most like honest, see-through, transparent, good guy that he wants everyone to think he is.
And speaking of MAGA, you recently met with Donald Trump in Florida. What did you guys talk about?
I was at a dinner. I was not dinner. I was at a breakfast at a friend's place, and Donald Trump came by. That's it.
So you didn't go there to meet him?
No, I went to a friend of mine's house and it said Donald Trump's coming by for breakfast. Is that just so you know? Like, okay, fine.
What did you discuss?
Let's just say he did most of the talking.
What did he say?
The normal things he says. There was nothing particularly groundbreaking or new, but he, President Trump likes to talk, and so he talked. I don't recall him saying anything that he hasn't said publicly, and that was it. It was just a breakfast.
Did he ask you for money?
He didn't.
Did he ask you for a donation?
No.
He didn't?
No.
You said you're not going to donate to any candidate.
That's correct.
Why not?
I think while I'll voice my opinion, I think I don't want to put a thumb on the scale monetarily that is, significant.
Are you going to loan him money to help pay his bills?
No,
not at all. Pay his legal bills.
I'm not paying his legal bills in any way, shape, or form.
And he did not ask you for money.
And he did not ask me for money.
Are you going to? So you're not going to endorse a candidate?
I may, in the final stretch, endorse a candidate, but I don't know yet. I want to make a considered decision before the election, and if I do decide to endorse a candidate, then I will explain exactly why.
Are you leaning towards anyone?
No.
You're not leaning towards anyone? Because you've been...
I'm leaning away from Biden.
You're leaning...
I've made no secret of that.
Are you concerned about losing your security clearance if Biden is reelected? Does that have anything to do with it?
No.
You are leaning away from Biden, but you're not going to endorse anyone. It seems like an endorsement of President Trump because there are only 2 people who are running now. Nikki Haley is out.
I mean, a lot could happen between now and the election, so we'll see who, in the final analysis, are the choices for president. And at that point, I may or may not endorse one of the candidates. If I do, I will provide a very detailed explanation of why I am endorsing one or the other.
At that point, might you contribute or donate?
I think it's unlikely.
His rocket company is the only reason we can now send American astronauts into space. Come here. Take over, Elon. Yes, take over.
Hi, everyone. As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA. Well, first of all, I want to say what an honor it is to be here. And, you know, the true test of someone's character is how they behave under fire. And we had one president who couldn't climb a flight of stairs, and another who was fist pumping after getting shot. Fight, fight, fight. Blood coming down the face. Now, America is the home of the brave.
Elon Musk!
I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark, gothic MAGA. Well, the energy in this room is incredible. All government spending is taxation. So whether it's direct taxation or all government spending, it either becomes inflation or it's direct taxation. Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that. America's just not just going to be great. America is going to reach heights that it has never seen before. The future is going to be amazing!
I'm worried about all kinds of things that they're doing. They're buying up the real estate all over America. They own large swaths of some of our biggest cities. I mean, it's like they're aggressive on a few fronts.
I jumped ahead quite a bit, so this is not about Elon or any of that prior stuff anymore.
It's kind of crazy they're allowed to buy land around military bases.
It's unreal.
That's like, what?
It's unreal.
Like, what?
I've been hearing about this and echoing that same opinion for a year or two, that it's crazy that foreign countries or citizens that are not citizens of the United States can buy and own land here. That just seems like such a bad idea, and like kind of crazy that we even allow that.
Imagine trying to pull that off in China. And that's the difference between having a guy who's been in power for fucking decades, really knows how to run the country, versus some person who got elected in a popularity contest.
It's also a difference of when people see the country as a going out of business sale. I mean, you're selling
farms,
selling everything, you know, from out from under everybody, and
it's a yard sale.
It's what the way people are treating America right now is just to fucking throw a sign on it, make your best offer, come in and loot.
Isn't it funny that if you said you have to be American to buy American property, people would be up in arms?
They'd be up in arms, and they'd say it's racist, and the real estate lobby would come out and go, it's racist
because they want that Russian money.
Because they want that fucking oligarch dollar.
Like they want that money.
The one that told me first about these apartment buildings in New York City.
They're like ghost cities. This is another thing. We all go. And
this is crazy that I didn't know about until this. So shout out to Tim Dillon for bringing light to this. And this is, again, why I chose to break down this interview. Some of it might be kind of dull and same old stuff that we always review on the channel, or that you've heard a million times on someone else's channel or somewhere else. But this was a new cut that I had heard, and maybe some of you have also heard this. But anyway, this is something I found interesting and new information to me, so I figured I'd put it in the review and just kind of commentate on it. But yeah, it's interesting what he's about to say.
You just read these things. They go, look at these Chinese ghost cities. They built all these cities and nobody lives in them. And I go, if you go to any of these buildings by Central Park, there's like 20% of it occupied, 30% of it. 70% of it is straight up money laundering, where it's people that have purchased multiple apartments under the name of an LLC, a limited liability corporation. And by the way, they've got a lot of them. There's not just one. There's so many of them, shell corps, that you can barely find who owns it. And it causes the price of everything to go up. And they're not living in the city. They're not contributing. They're not tipping at restaurants. They're not buying tickets to Yankee games. They're doing it to move their money out of Russia, China, the United Arab Emirates, Brazil, India, wherever. They're stashing it in these buildings. And it's causing the prices of all of the real estate around it to skyrocket.
Yeah, the real.
That's crazy. I just thought that was interesting that people from other countries are using America to like hide their money and shit, and it's just really affecting our real estate.
Real estate in New York is bananas.
Well, it's L.A. It's even in cities like Austin. Obviously, there's not as much of that, but but there are foreign buyers in this market that have pushed it up.
Everywhere. Sold for a whopping oh my God.
Yeah.
This apartment sold for $238 million, the highest recorded price for a residential property. Billionaires Rose, a home to.
See, this is the kind of thing. How come the lawmakers, and like I was saying much earlier, how Joe was like selling the dream, and I'm saying like, is that dream even obtainable anymore? There's stuff like this that doesn't necessarily affect him, but if there's property, like basically people like Joe and him and his friends and people probably a little bit above him, they're like the top of the food chain as far as like who's gonna own luxury houses and apartments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If they're hearing about something that they would not even think about buying, or their friends or even the people above them would not even think about realistically buying, it's like that just shows how fucked up the real estate game is. And that's just throwing it off for everyone below you. It's like a domino effect that affects. If this doesn't directly affect Joe, okay, it affects the person that would own this, and then they're owning something a little less nice, and blah blah blah. It affects everyone all the way down. So everything affects everyone at this point. We're all so closely intertwined that, when you have someone cheating the system in this way, it affects everybody over here. So not that it's on him to do something about this, but like it's on our lawmakers. So, when he's going to get buddy and hug up to Trump, it's like, he's part of the same old system that hasn't fixed this kind of problem. So I'm just looking for Joe to be more critical and stuff like that. But anyway, yeah, is the American dream even possible with stuff like this going on?
8 ultra-luxury skyscrapers, each equipped with luxurious amenities ranging from cinema rooms to saunas.
Look at that. The average sale price, $9.8 million, and that's in that part of the city. That is the part of the city that is the favorite of foreign money.
Look at it says here. As of 2022, there are 772 unpurchased units.
Because they've built these buildings specifically for
money laundering.
Wow. This is not built for regular rich people. Most regular wealthy people cannot afford to live in a $50 million apartment.
Or a $238
million apartment. So the whole thing is incredibly, it's completely manipulated. So it's not a real market that has anything to do with supply and demand. It's artificially manipulated by a lot of wealthy people, and then the real estate lobby loves it. They want it, and the developers like it.
Sure.
And so those big money people love it. And
how's the money laundering part of it work?
Because they take money out of whatever country, and then they stash it in America in real estate. So they'll come in and buy something cash under an LLC, and that however much money that would have been in their home country, because some of those countries are volatile. And the governments of those countries could decide, okay, you will have money. It's 20% of it's now ours.
Right.
Here's the new tax.
Right.
Give me. There's people that try to do it here.
Yeah.
They propose wealth taxes, things like that, all the time. Right. Some of them are make some sense. Some of them are ludicrous.
So he's kind of breaking down how it goes, but I just thought that was super interesting, and how, the real estate market here is even thrown off by not only people here doing crooked things and having monopolies, but also by other people from other countries just trying to hide their money in other things and maybe also monopolize in other things. But if nothing else, just hide their money and just throw off the real estate game in that way. But yeah, allowing other people or countries, to buy land here if you're not a citizen here is a crazy idea to me, and I don't think we should allow that at all.
I don't know how you unwind all of this.
You don't.
You don't really unwind it. Now,
also most people don't understand it. So
they don't
who's
understand.
going to run it? Who's going to? Where's all the money going to go? How you going to
It's hard to fight these people because that's the problem. It's like everyone kind of wants to be them, and then the people that
they're talking about like getting rid of the people that run the world, or like taking it down somehow.
Don't want to be them. They will
proof of what I was trying to say earlier. Like Joe Rogan's part of it, or at best he's like one of their little toads, or toadies, or however the fuck you want to say it. Like he's their little pet, and like for him to know what's going on and not share more of the truth is just like a crime against like the people, basically, at this point.
Kill you. That's the problem. They will blackmail you, and if that doesn't work, they will kill you. This is the thing, because they are the top of the food chain. And when you are at the top of the food chain, you're not going to...
So there you go. They will blackmail you or they will kill you if you don't do what they want.
Give that power up without a tremendous fight. And I think that's really where a lot of it comes down to, is they're preserving their position on the top of the hierarchy.
Imagine if the United States made a law where you couldn't buy real estate unless you're an American citizen. New York City apartment buildings would be a bloodbath.
But by the way, not only would it be a bloodbath there, it would be a bloodbath everywhere. And then people would look at their 401ks and go, the shit I'm invested in is tanked. That's the other problem, because all of the stuff they're invested in is based on a lot of investments being made by those companies like BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street and Citadel or Goldman. So it's just...
One of the creepiest things they're doing is buying residential homes and leasing them to people.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been saying this too.
Yeah, because they don't want people to own their homes. They don't want people to have the power of home ownership or the dignity of home ownership.
Is that what it is? Or is it
No, yeah, that's what it is.
Profitable to buy homes and lease them?
It's profitable because
That's why they're doing it. Do you really think there's like some insidious thing, like they don't...
Yes. It's about more than the money at some point. The people at the top have all the money and control already. And at some point, it's about breaking down and just making the people at the bottom their absolute servants, to where you have no, they basically want to own you completely, where you have no option to do anything. And so, yeah, it's about more than the money. It's about ultimate control. And that's just one more step of you not owning your home, be able to do what you want.
Want people to have homes. Really?
I love how Joe is he's playing the devil's advocate for the bad guys, instead of being yeah, I mean, he is shedding light to it, but then he's like, well, is that really why they're doing it? It's yeah, dude. You should be giving every argument of why they are doing it that way, not saying oh, were you sure that's why they're doing it? You should be on Tim Dillon's side and pointing out every single reason of why they are doing it that way, because it's so obvious if that's what they're doing. But why are you ever why aren't you being more critical? I forget who said this. I feel like it was Eddie Bravo, which a lot of people wouldn't fuck with him, but I fuck with him pretty heavy on, honestly, I don't know how I feel about him, but I like this quote from him. If someone the government has been proven wrong again and again and again, when you're questioning them, you should look at them like they're a criminal in a trial and they have to prove their innocence, not like they're, I don't know. You just look at them differently because they've been guilty so many other times. So you don't say, okay, this is your first time doing a crime, we're going to just look at this like nothing. It's no, you've been a criminal your whole life. You've done crime after crime after crime. There's all this evidence. Or even if there was the evidence, you're going to have to provide overwhelming evidence to the contrary for them to believe you, because you've lied so many times in the past or done so many crimes in the past. So for the government, who has done so many crimes and lied so many times, looking ass, you should be asking every single question like a prosecuting attorney of I'm super doubtful that they are innocent.
Really?
Yes, because I think they go that I think they
or if it's not even the government in this case, it's these huge corporations, but a lot of people pretty much acknowledge that they're in bed with the government, and that, because if not, they would have laws against them because they're monopolies, right? So
look at it and say Americans will be happy renting. I mean, that's the famous article. By 2030, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Right, but that's just those WEF dorks.
Yeah, but those WEF dorks are incredibly powerful amongst the crew of people. They all get together. They all these conferences, whether they meet, and it's not always nefarious, but they go to Davos or Bilderberg or whatever. And this idea that that's the thing people talk about. Why should you preserve culture? Is it racist to preserve culture? And I don't mean the specific culture of any one race, but this idea that you want to preserve culture. And people go, well, why is it good to preserve traditional culture? And because there will always be a culture. So if it's not Italian culture, Irish culture, Mexican culture.
I guess that's why it's important to preserve the culture that you like and that you fuck with and that you think is the best, because if there is always going to be a culture, you want it to be the culture that you identify with and that you think is the best. So that's an interesting thought and concept.
Black culture, whatever it is, it's going to be soulless global corporate culture. That's why every hotel looks the same. That's why every
That's definitely not the culture I want.
an apartment looks the same, because the same people are choosing the same fucking 10 shades of marble and shades of wood, and they're putting up all of these different condos and all of these office buildings. That's why all these cities are starting to look the same. Everything looks like a weird Airbnb. It looks like they 3D printed everything. That's why all these restaurants are starting to look the same, because it's soulless corporate culture. Americans, just like people all over the world, have less and less financial power, and more of it is being consolidated on the higher end. And they're going to say, you're going to rent your house. You're going to take Ubers everywhere. You don't need to own a car. You're going to take whatever vaccine we think is good. You'll drive your car on Thursday, or you'll be able to Uber on Thursdays because of climate. You're not going to be able to Uber whenever you want, or you won't be able to use this amount of water or this amount of heat or this amount of energy. And all of this are going to be edicts delivered to you from the government, but also by these corporate oligarchs that just own everything. And it's going to be a very bland and soulless world.
It'll be Times Square.
It'll be Times Square.
What Times Square used to be.
But somehow worse.
Versus what Times Square is, a giant Applebee's now.
That's right. It's a giant Applebee's. And it'll be that.
So it'll be what Times Square used to. What did Times Square used to be? So we'll be what Times Square used to be, or we'll be what Times Square is now. None of it sounds too good. Let's see.
Serene, cold, corporate feeling that you get now when you walk into like a St. Regis, and all these hotels are all owned by Marriott, the Ritz, or any of these hotels. You walk into these hotels and it's all gray. It's all gray. And it all looks like a conference room. And everything, nothing's loud, and hello, and how are you? And no one can do anything. Oh, we're sorry about, we're not able to do that. We can't do that. And everybody's rule followed, everybody's cameras trained on everybody. Yeah. So God forbid somebody does anything. Like you try to tip people sometimes, they go, thank you, I can't. I mean, we're not allowed to. And you're just looped because everybody's terrified of losing their job. Everybody's terrified of upsetting these people. Everybody's on camera. And, it's like, it sucks. The whole thing is turning into that. And I think as much as, there's a lot of conspiracies about the World Economic Forum and all that stuff. Some of them are probably based in reality. Some of them are just crackpots. But one thing that I think is very real is all of those people, those organizations, they exist to create a consensus amongst the wealthiest and powerful people that it is better to favor this set of policies over that one. And all of those policies inevitably take power.
Like he was just saying a minute ago up at the hotel, like everything's real corporate, real trained. Like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't do this, we can't do that. Oh, I can't take a tip. Oh, can't do this. Oh, everything's real trained. Like the cameras on them at all times, and they're always on the computer surveillance, so to speak, or technology surveillance. It's like everything. It's the surveillance combined with the. Like everyone being more feminized, I guess, for lack of a better term, but everyone just being just feminized, but almost just dulled down in another way too, to where, because I don't even know if it's a feminine thing, but it's just like we're not challenging. It's almost like a disagreeable and agreeable thing. Not even that though. It's something that's hard to put my finger on. It's in those terms, but it's just like I don't know. I have to think more about it. But it's bordering on the disagreeable, agreeable, masculine, feminine thing. But it's a little different. It's independent of those. Man, I'm trying to come up with the word, but it's just like we don't have a sharpness anymore, and we're just kind of more dull, for lack of a better term. And it's almost like they're encouraging that more and more. And it is kind of like an agreeableness in a way, or where you just don't really think. Maybe you're not a free thinker. Maybe that kind of goes into it too. So it's just sad to see, and yeah, that's the culture they're kind of pushing, like they were talking about earlier. So,
and ownership away from people, and reappropriate that and redistribute it to wealthier people, the government, and big corporations.
100%. Well said. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And those people, you don't know anybody like that.
Nations sees about the world economic. Everybody's on camera. And, you know, it's like, it sucks. The whole thing is turning into that. And I think as much as, you know, there's a lot of conspiracies about the World Economic Forum and all that stuff. Some of them are probably based in reality. Some of them are just crackpots. But one thing that I think is very real is all of those people, those organizations, they exist to create a consensus amongst the wealthiest and powerful people that it is better to favor this set of policies over that one.
Yeah, the policies they push them toward are just making everyone more of a pussy and not a free thinker, and encouraging kind of, yeah, what he was just saying, where everyone's just like afraid to just go against the policy. And like, of course, the policy is not for their benefit, so they're supporting something that's bad for them, and they're afraid to go against. It's like an animal that's slowly being herded into a meat shredder, and it's afraid to do anything that's going to change that. But there's like several little tiny steps along the way that it could take to change it, but it just never will. And it's like we're just slowly leading to our own demise by slowly getting more and more bitched out, and there are more and more policies and more influence to go that way, and we just keep on going, and that's the culture they're promoting. And it's like, man, it's sad to see.
Your dad.
They know better than you.
Yeah, and that's the thing when they talk about misinformation and disinformation. Don't you know? You know the difference, right? If you know the difference, why do you assume other people won't know it?
That's right.
Like, you want to say that other people are stupid and they're not capable of making these decisions or discerning what's true and what's false by themselves. So you want to eliminate anything that you disagree with and just call it misinformation.
Yeah. And not only that, but it's to demonize people, the demonization of podcasts, the demonization of people that, you know, are willing to have conversations with people they disagree with. It's all...
That is the good thing that I will say that, like, as I was saying earlier, I'm not necessarily a fan of Joe himself, but I'm a fan of, like, the podcast, the style, the format, like, how it provides people a platform, etc. But, yeah, it's just... I'm for that, and I'm against disinformation, so I agree with what they're saying right here. But it's a funny coincidence that the most successful podcast and one of the best is also a podcast that is not, what would I say? Yeah, man. He is not as much of a free thinker as you would think, and he is able to control information a little bit himself even. So where the media is like 100% garbage, Joe Rogan has still got like a 20% or 30% of like a choke on what he's able to say. So even though he'll give you 70% truth, he's still got a choke on that, you know, 25, 30% on, hey, you can't say this. So I would say he's not totally organic and he's not totally unfiltered. And that'd be the best way I can put it, I guess. So, you know, it's not so ironic that he's the biggest one. It's not that way by accident, you know?
Done to discredit anything that runs counter to that narrative. It's the same reason they don't want people to have social engagements that have any value, or a lot of times the reason that if somebody says something mildly pro-family, they flip the fuck out.
Yeah.
Because they don't want people to have a strong community with a family or a social arrangement that's fulfilling to them where they aren't dependent on not only services from the government, but also they're not dependent on the government to tell them what is valuable and meaningful in life.
Right.
I thought that was interesting for him to bring up, but yeah, that's a good point. I really agree with that, and they don't want you to have value outside of them, and especially like a strong community. So that was a good point.
Right. And so logically, as they achieve more power, they will have to get people to go along with these things.
That's right.
And the way they do that is through forming these narratives.
They have
now,
to.
The counter to those narratives is the popularity of podcasts, because the narratives, like if they only had the mainstream media, they would be so much further ahead.
That's right.
Imagine If like there was never anything on the internet other than websites and email. Nobody ever figured out social media.
Yeah.
So nobody ever figured out like
we'd
you could
have
put up a news
boots
story.
on the ground in the Ukraine right now. I'm not even kidding.
We probably would.
If they was just the mainstream media, we would have boots on the ground in the Ukraine currently.
Jeez.
That's a good idea, or like a good idea for a topic. Yeah, like further discussion, I guess. How much smarter or more open-minded are we because of social media and, you know, open format like podcasts and stuff where we can discuss ideas? And I guess we're a lot further ahead, but it seems like some people are still so close-minded and like not a whole lot has changed as far as like the world getting better or people really accepting new ideas with an open mind. So I don't know. What do y'all think about that? Do y'all think we're a whole lot better off than we would have been? Or obviously we're probably better off, but like how much so? And like, can you think of a good example of where there's a certain topic where we really haven't advanced from where we should have been? And it's like, we think we're advancing so fast and accepting new ideas, but sometimes we're accepting new ideas that are the wrong ideas. And like transgenderism, that's a new thing that we've accepted where we've gone backwards with a new idea. But I feel like there's maybe other things that I can't even think of right now where we should have accepted a new idea or moved forward in thinking and we haven't. So I feel like it has been good overall, but it probably could have been better. And just because there's a lot of new information doesn't mean people's hearts have changed to accepting the new true information.
Are left, it became a different thing.
Yeah, but it became left in a way that wasn't about workers' rights or economic justice. It became left in a way about like aesthetic identity politics that prevented any discussions about CEO pay or health care or anything like that. It just became, and I think they're really enthusiastic people about that ideology. Things are pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of people where things are good enough in their lives to worry about whether we have a trans Batman.
100%.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think a lot of the enthusiastic proponents of that stuff believe things are great and they're only getting better.
Yeah.
And to sell a campaign, and listen, she may win, it's early in the day, but to sell a campaign on the word joy is utterly insane.
It's also kind of a revenge of the nerds thing too.
Yeah.
Because it's a complete polar shift of identity hierarchies.
Yeah.
You know, the people that were like the weirdos and the freaks, the trans people and the, you know, all of a sudden those people are at the top of this hierarchy.
Yeah, they're trying to make something that's not natural and put the freaks and the weirdos on top. I agree with that.
Of oppression.
Sure.
And celebrated above all.
Yeah. But it's also,
where
I think,
it used to be those are the ones that are cast out of society.
But it's also like this idea that you need to keep identifying ways to divide people.
But like I was saying earlier, you can find a way to like, man, what word did I use? Have a caveat to everything, like believe what you want to believe, confirmation bias. If you bring up, like the people that are on the Democratic side, they'll just focus on all the bad things about Trump, and they will not even focus on the fact that the Democrats support the transgender stuff and all the wrong stuff they support. They'll just kind of like ignore that stuff. And then the people on the right will ignore the bad stuff about Trump, and they'll focus in on the bad stuff the Democrats support. So both sides just ignore the bad stuff about their side and focus in on the bad stuff on the other side. So, yeah, I touched on that quite a bit earlier when I was rambling, but it's just so interesting that in this time, there's so much information that you can, again, like I was saying, not so far back in the video, we have so much information, but your heart has to be open to accepting the truth. So you can just believe only the bad stuff about one side and not the bad stuff about both sides, or you can believe all the truth and believe that both sides do probably a little good and a lot of bad, and make your decision from there instead of just believing that one side is all good and one side is all bad and just kind of living in this confirmation bias fucking tornado.
And there's no better way to do it than to claim that everybody threatens everyone else.
I agree with you, but here's a question.
Yeah.
Is this a natural thing? Is this like a natural thing that humans do when they find a vulnerability in a social system? They attach themselves to it, whether it's white guys pretending to be black, you know, a couple of those.
Yeah.
You know, those kind of situations? Like,
yes.
like there seems to be people attach themselves to something and then they sort of subvert it. But do you think it would have existed anyway? Do you think that someone has a vested interest in keeping us divided, and so that these social issues, like whatever it is that comes up, like whether it's BLM, like any kind of social movement that creates disruption, do you think that those are engineered and those are injected into the system to make people have things to fight over?
I think there's a balance. I think that there's organic rifts and fissures in society that allow certain sentiments to bubble to the surface, like BLM, like the war in Gaza and the problems and the protests that are happening there. But the minute that stuff happens, I believe people seize on the opportunity and exploit it and fund those things and bust people into those protests and exacerbate that moment because it is, I think, a defining, when Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. You know what I mean?
That's such a crazy thing to say out loud.
When he said, never let a good crisis go to waste, they are telling you, it's like when Lindsey Graham says, I want that money. Like, give me that money. I don't want Putin having that money, when they're saying it in front of your face.
Oh, man. There he goes again. But yeah, never let a good crisis go to waste. And it's like, y'all still trust these people? Like, they say it right to your face, like you said, but why are you going to endorse someone that's part of the system, Joe? Like, why are you endorsing Trump? Why are you buying some of the Kool-Aid if they're going to tell you, never let a good crisis go to waste? We can't let, and then, a whole separate thing, but we can't let Putin get that money. It's like, it's all bullshit. Why are you deciding to vote? Why are you getting wrapped up in the whirlwind?
The minute that stuff happens, I believe people seize on the opportunity and exploit it and fund those things and bust people into those protests and exacerbate that moment because it is, I think, a defining, when Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. You know what I mean?
That's such a crazy thing to say out loud.
When he said, never let a good crisis go to waste, they are telling you, it's like when Lindsey Graham says, I want that money. Like, give me that money. I don't want Putin having that money, when they're saying it in front of your face.
Man.
When Rahm Emanuel says, never let a good crisis go to waste, the whole ethos of that statement is to seize on organic problems and exacerbate them and then inject whatever agenda you.
Yeah, so that's crazy.
Have so that you can then wrestle more power away from human beings.
Yeah, and it's always for their benefit. So I mean, come on, if y'all know this, then how can y'all, not maybe Tim Dillon, but how can Joe Rogan continue to support this, knowing what he just said and the other things that they've outlined here and there that I touched on at the time? Like, how can, knowing what y'all know, knowing that it's bullshit, voting is, at one point Joe Rogan referenced voting is bullshit. They reference right now, never let a good crisis go to waste. It's all about the money, all this stuff. And like, you're going to end up voting for Trump and falling back into the trap? Like, why? Why fall back into the belief of it?
Voyeuristic thing. Yeah. Again, it's part of the flattening of everybody with technology, where individualism has been likened to being heartless or soulless or uncaring, and that you are not invested in the welfare and well-being of others, which is not true, by the way. Thinking freely does not mean you don't care about people. It means you're not going to swallow narratives that the Defense Department has handed to MSNBC. That doesn't mean you want people to live in the street.
Exactly.
But this is, people just don't like that idea.
Yeah, people don't like when you really, really, really question the system for real.
It's a collectivist mindset now, where like people... You have to be on the same page with everybody.
Well,
yeah, he nailed it with that. Okay. People do not want you to think for yourself or be an individual at all. And they really don't want you to question the system like one bit.
Wish he could just rattle off.
I'm open to it too. Just tell me what it is.
Tell me what it is.
I hear you. It's
like there's so much evidence, so much evidence. We have so much evidence of cheating. But
a lot of people close to him say there isn't.
Who's those people? How many of those people are covering their ass?
I don't know, but Mike Pence probably.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Like that guy.
Is he covering his ass?
Yeah, he just endorsed Kamala Harris too. Yeah, they wanted to kill him. There was people that went to on January 6th. They were looking for him, allegedly and supposedly.
No, for sure. But I'm wondering, like, I'm open to the idea that there was fraud, but like a lot of top people, like people that were in his orbit, don't talk about, like, he talks about it.
Right. But okay, so let's take Pence out of the equation because he's probably salty. They're probably.
For sure. But I'm saying, like, Pence didn't. If there was evidence, wouldn't he, like, Pence have said, all right, let's not certify it?
No.
Okay.
That is a crazy thing to do.
Right, okay.
For vice president to stand up and say, I mean, that's essentially like you're getting ready for a fucking major conflict.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? Don't you think? Like,
no, for sure. We just need someone.
That guy doesn't want that kind of heat. That's not Trump.
For sure. We need someone outside of Trump to verify it.
Yeah, like who would that be that you would trust implicitly?
Well, you would just need to see evidence. It would just be like if I made a claim about anything, I'd have to provide evidence.
But let's imagine that you were working with someone like Trump, and you're like a top guy, and you know there's no election interference. You know that the election integrity was 100%. You know that he's not telling the truth. Yeah. How could you stay with him? How could you stay with him without laying it out to him? Like, sir, can I just have an hour of your time?
Well, I think
Let me explain to you what the problem with saying that it's rigged. Here's where you can
see. That's what everyone says, though. They say, well, if it was this way, surely they have some reasoning in their mind of why it can't, blah, 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 why the bullshit has to be such and such way. But we don't know how it all works exactly. And, like, Trump can say things that he knows aren't true to lie to you and fool you from time to time. So that's probably the most likely thing that's happening. You know, the election interference thing is tricky. He plays peekaboo with that one. Sometimes he'll cling hard to it. Sometimes he won't say it. He's vague. Like Joe said, I think a minute ago, he brings it up, but he never has like the fine-tuned points of it. If it's so obvious and it's so blah, 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 you know, and it happened in multiple states and it's so rampant and so obvious, why don't you have some points that you can, when the topic is brought up, quickly point out, boom, 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 here's why we believe it's this way, that we can go off of, not just a bunch of vague shit.
You can say it's rigged. Okay, for sure. There was a 100% involvement in social media companies suppressing information that would have changed the results.
For sure.
At least in some percentage in one way or the other.
Yeah, and I'm open to it being that there was fuckery in other ways.
So that's one way. Social media, he needs to investigate that. Why shouldn't he just throw that out when he's asked?
I just think that just like anything else, you can't take someone's word.
Well, he says there's a bunch. He just didn't have it on hand.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that if there's something you've been talking about for 3 years. Like if you asked me,
See, that's exactly what I said. He's gonna, he needs to have the points.
Important stuff in my even stuff like if you ask me about like jujitsu.
Yeah, he's just gonna go and break it down. What I was just saying, he needs to have the points outlined. So anyway, moving on. But it's like, Joe, that's the guy that you supported and endorsed, right? Come on now.
And you just got to figure out how to do like an actual election that is fair.
It's AI.
And it's
going to be President AI.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to give up government to artificial intelligence once it's vastly superior to us.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, but I think it's on our...
It does make sense. I don't know about that.
Our path, what we're talking about before, about people.
You see how he just kind of gets to try to get you to, if he makes a lot, because he has made a lot of good points through this podcast, but he gets to making a lot of good points, making a lot of sense, seeming like a cool dude, loose mood, Joe Rogan podcast. He's got a lot of followers, a lot of influence. Like I said, I've said many times, but I'm a fan of the show and etc. Not necessarily him, but he gets you to thinking that you are a fan of him and a fan of most of what he says, and you kind of agree with a lot of what he says, and then he'll just slip in stuff that's totally like not in line with what's good and righteous, and kind of just try to get you to slide along with that too. And I'm just kind of not going for it. Like, oh yeah, maybe that is the right thing, just to give in to AI. Like, no, motherfucker, it's not. It's like you have a lot of good points, but then you have some every now and then that are really bad, and you're just trying to kind of, if he has a good flow 90% of the time, he's trying to just get you to go with the flow all the time, sort of shit.
becoming more frail and more like feeble, and like the British people when you're talking about their teeth, you know what that's from? It's from your jaw.
That's not all British people. Don't get mad at me.
When people have small jaws, like in your you see, like,
they all have scurvy.
It's literally from eating mushy food
because they have bones. They eat mushy peas and they have scurvy.
Your bones aren't as thick anymore because they're not chewing meat. You're not breaking things down with your teeth. You don't have to crack. So your jaw, like over time, becomes smaller and smaller.
Interesting.
There's actually a technique called mewing. And this guy figured out this technique where you can change the shape of your jaw with exercises and tongue pressure. And that there's other guys that I have a thing that I use at home. It's like I weightlift with my jaw. It sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But
oh man, sounds crazy. I weightlift with my jaw. Oh my goodness. Let's see. I don't know. I just think it's crazy how, as I said before, he's good with a lot of stuff, and then not necessarily this, but with the AI thing, he just tries to slip it in like that's the way to go, and we should just go right on along with it.
There's these.
And then they were also talking a little bit about like microevolution, but that's totally different from like macroevolution. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of an interesting little bit about the evolution thing.
So the shape of our face looks different.
So eventually there's just going to be a bunch of AI government.
We're going to slim
instead
down,
of these
son.
tiny jawed bitches in
when
there.
You look at aliens, right? You look at the aliens. They always have little tiny jaws.
Yeah.
Big ass fucking head. That's
so
us,
the next
dude.
10 years are just going to be unreal.
We're going to be those things. I think those things that we see, that people keep seeing, even if they're not real,
we become them.
That's us in the future.
The Greys.
Yeah.
What if that's not true? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's what's true.
We're sexless, genderless cyborgs.
Right.
Or maybe even completely artificial by that point.
You know, the Baphomet has both sexes. Like the thing that represents the devil, he has like all the sex parts, like the tits and a male genitalia. So it's and Joe's like just promoting that. Just we'll become sexless. Just I don't know. Basically, if you believe the aliens are demons, then he's just saying we're going to become like them, or we're just going to become demons. So, I mean, that's jumping through a few hoops to get somewhere far, but, like, I don't want to become an AI, alien, robot thing that's potentially, to me, I think that it's tied in with something more demonic, so I don't want to get tied in with all that shit.
Maybe we realize that consciousness can
basically it's becoming less human. You know what I mean?
Be captured, and that we all share it, and there's no benefit whatsoever in being an individual, that it's just a cheat code that the primate used in order to think of itself as important enough to continue to innovate to the point where it creates artificial intelligence.
Now, if she had run on that instead of the word joy, I would have voted for her.
I think that's where we're going. I think that's what all this.
He's trying to seem like that's the pinnacle of like whatever's good, and like that's just where it's gonna go no matter what, and that's the best thing, and that's just the natural evolution of things, and that's where it's supposed to go, and that's what's best, and we all just need to accept it. But it's like, what if this technology advances to the point that it is, and these quote-unquote aliens are something that are kind of demonic, and it's not to be trifled with, and they're leading us to think that it's something good, and that's the direction we're all supposed to head, and we're supposed to intermingle with this stuff, and it's all just fine. And like, this is the natural progression of things. It's like, what if that's not true? And there's something a lot more sinister to this stuff. And Joe's just kind of like co-signing it again with his large audience, his large influence. He does have a lot of good points on other things. And then he just kind of slides it in like, oh yeah, like this is the way we're supposed to go. This is the way it's supposed to be. It's like, maybe not. And if you're wrong, the consequences could be dire. And I definitely think he is wrong. So anyway, that's kind of my opinion on that. Let's see.
I would have been
Gender
transfixed.
shit is-
Yeah.
I think that's why male hormone levels are dropping through the floor, which is.
Do you think we've been here before?
In what way?
Do you think humanity's ever been in this spot before?
I think humanity's been in a different but similar spot.
Okay.
I think that's what ancient Egypt was all about. There's no way that level of sophistication could be achieved unless those people were beyond what anybody is thinking about from people that lived 5,000, 6,000 years ago. There's just no way. There's literally no way. Because
does God figure into this at all?
Well, of course,
I don't know.
If God's real, God's everything.
Right.
If God's real, God's the universe. And there's like a powerful creative force that didn't just made Earth and a bunch of stupid people that were in a garden and this bitch talked to the snake and ate an apple.
Right.
No, God made the whole thing.
That's
if there's
right.
a real God, he made the whole thing. And the whole thing is made by what? It's made by the universe.
Right.
The universe makes itself, right? So the universe is probably God. So yeah, God plays into it. But I think there's a direction that primates go in, and it goes into like.
How do you know though?
Ever more weak and feeble, but much more capable with tools. And it happens with some like bonobos. They're super peaceful. They just fuck each other. Somehow or another, there's chimpanzees that are murderous monsters that just run around tearing each other apart, killing each other, tribal wars, killing monkeys. And then there's these other ones that just fuck each other all the time.
Chill.
Yeah, like, what is that? Like, there's just like, that seems like they're a little bit more evolved. Right. And that's probably how humans were. And then humans eventually figured out tools and and we became what we are now. Well, we're going to keep going in that direction. So we're so much weaker than even a monkey. You're like, a monkey will tear your fucking head off. Like, we're so feeble, and we're going to get feebler. I
don't know. It seems like a good story, but I don't know. What if he's wrong and then everyone just merges with these robots and these aliens and shit, and it's something a little more sinister?
Going to be smarter. Way smarter. Yeah. We're going to be communicating.
Because if that was true, then these Lobos or whatever the fuck he was talking about that are the more evolved monkeys that are just fucking, when are they going to turn into humans? Come on now. It doesn't work that way.
Completely with our minds. We'll probably never need sounds anymore. We'll probably never use devices. Everything will happen in your mind.
What's the fun of all of that?
What's the fun of being a chimp? Is that fun? You want to throw shit for the rest of your life and eat bananas?
It's not about the fun of it. It's about connecting to God. And if we intermingle with these demons or this AI and shit that we're not supposed to, and it takes you away from God and closer to what's evil, then that's terrible.
Bananas, get the fuck out of here. I want to drive a Cadillac. I want to watch a fucking movie.
Yeah, but
I want to call people on my phone that are nowhere near me.
I
right?
know.
So what's the purpose in being a person? You're filled with anxiety. You're worried about who's going to win the election. You're trying to stay off drugs, but you want a cigarette.
Right.
What's the point? What's the point in that stupidity when you can be an enlightened being that flies through space with your mind?
Ooh. Well, I never thought about it like that.
If Lazar's telling the truth, Bob Lazar, the guy that supposedly back-engineered these crafts, if that guy's telling the truth, he said there was no controls inside those devices. When they're
powering them with their mind.
There's some connection between the...
But this guy can be a liar. This Bob Lazar can be a liar. That's the thing. He acts like that guy's an infallible truth teller.
Entity and the device that's not an interface like we think of, like a joystick and buttons.
So they're
you
just
push.
so evolved. It's a different thing.
It's a different thing, but it's
just
probably
a different thing.
It's probably what we become because we didn't always have clothes.
Well, of course.
Think about clothes and shoes and your silly sunglasses and all this stuff.
Well, they're not silly.
They're beautiful.
Okay.
They're not silly.
I don't have them.
Of course.
When I have them, I'll call you up. I go, dude, look.
But you're right. We're advanced.
We're advanced. So we're so much different than chimps.
It's the Bill Hicks line, evolution didn't end with thumbs.
It's our distant cousin. But if you look at them and you look at us, like, what is going on with them? Why do they have to have clothes? Like, they're wearing coats and jackets and shit. They all have shoes. No one walks barefoot at all.
Right.
Like, we're softening ourselves up.
Right.
We're like literally putting a nice shell over ourselves so we become a fucking a squid. Like some
So you think if you come
form.
back to this planet in 50 years, if it's still here?
Robots. I think no more biological life in terms of humans. Wildlife will exist. All that stuff will exist.
So all the other animals will be here the same, but not us. Come on.
No more people. I think
really.
I think people are the cocoon. We make the electronic butterfly. It comes out of the cocoon.
That's crazy. And let me go back to where he says that he is in favor of all this. And then we'll move on to the next thing.
fun? You want to throw shit for the rest of your life and eat bananas? Get the fuck out of here. I want to drive a Cadillac. I want to watch a fucking movie.
Yeah, but
I want to call people on my phone that are nowhere near me.
I
right?
know,
So
yeah.
what's the purpose in being a person?
What's the point in being a person? I want to advance to the next fucking thing.
You're filled with anxiety.
Anyway, it's interesting. He's trying to work on your mind here.
You're worried about who's going to win the election.
Good point.
You're trying to stay off drugs, but you want a cigarette.
Right.
What?
I don't know. He's really trying to do one, you know. What's the point of doing all that? I want to be an enlightened being. Unless that's not what it is, and it's kind of a lie, like I was outlining earlier. So, anyway.
Him? But I also thought that is very close, and I think with Roe, that was the one X factor.
100%.
That was the only X factor I had thought about. I think without that...
Not just Roe, but that thing that I brought up with J.D. Vance, which some people believe is true. And apparently there might have been a case in Texas, Jamie. I know you're Googling, but where we were talking about women in a place where it's restrictive. Like Texas has a 6-week law, which is crazy because you don't even know you're pregnant in 6 weeks. You barely missed your period, right?
It's crazy.
Especially if your period's like not regular. And then if you go to another state where abortion is legal and they find out, they can prosecute you.
Right. So that's the type of stuff I think that she could win on that.
Right.
Because that is crazy.
Well, it's not just crazy. It's gross. Because here's why it's gross.
Hold on, Joe Rogan. If this is so crazy and so gross, and it happened all the time and it was so egregious, then why is it so hard to find the fucking specific details and the stats and the numbers and even the anecdotal stories? Like, why don't you have all those lined up and ready for us when you talk about this to really hit it home if it was happening all the time? But I just think it's kind of bullshit. And let's see. If women were getting prosecuted by going to other states, then where are like all the stories? Like, I just think you're saying all these things, but we don't have the anecdotal stories. We don't have stats on it. You're just like throwing out this thing. Oh, it's crazy that this happens all the time. And kind of like you were saying about Trump earlier, if he was having this election fraud thing and just keeps on saying it, that after a while when you asked him about it, he would have some specific things to bring up to substantiate it. But when you keep hearing about this women abortion thing and it's brought up, you never hear any like more specific points that help like substantiate it. So I don't know. I feel like Joe's pushing the propaganda on this one.
Not just because you shouldn't be able to tell people where the fuck to go and where they can go and do things that it's a legal medical procedure. But imagine if you're a woman who gets pregnant and you have a miscarriage, and you go and visit your mom who lives in Oklahoma where abortion's legal, and then you get questioned as to whether or not you had an illegal.
Does that ever really fucking happen? Come on, dude. He's just talking about hypotheticals and talking out of his ass. As I said, if there was more anecdotal stories, more stats, anything, I'd be willing to listen. But or points outlined like they're saying with Trump and the whole election thing. Like he didn't have any, like, points ready to go, or little what would I say? Just out points and outlines and things ready to go of like, here's something, here's an example. If you don't have several examples ready to go, whether they're stats or anecdotal or anything, it's like you're just kind of like saying this vague thing that's been repeated over and over. Like, I'm not gonna believe you. So fuck off, Joe. I think that's about all I got for this one. So it went a little long. I rambled on some points. But I think you get the underlying message. There was some stuff they talked about that was good. Whether it be the how politics is played, and especially like the real estate thing, and how real estate's fucked up because other countries can buy real estate here, and the elites mostly. It was mostly like about the politics and the elites and maybe a little bit of the real estate, maybe one or two other things, but I think that was mostly it. But I think the overarching message is, like, I was kind of touching on it here and there and trying to find, like, evidence for it at first, but I feel like some of it kind of came around. But Joe Rogan, I kind of touched on it some during the Trump thing as well. He is not, like, he's a good entertainer and he's a good podcaster for conversation, but he is not like a truth seeker, and he is not pushing for like the ultimate truth, and like he's one of these people that can know a bunch of truths, like, oh, this is fucked up and this is fucked up and this doesn't work the way it should and it would be better if it could be this way, but then he goes right back into believing in Trump and be willing to endorse him and vote for him and etc. So it's like, can we really believe in you only but so much as a voice of reason? And I guess that's kind of how I saw him maybe in the beginning, like a fan of him, a voice of reason and whatnot. But now I would see him as no more than an entertainer, because as I've just outlined, and maybe throughout this whole thing, he's not consistent with his reasoning. And you need that if you're going to be considered and someone that's an informer, a truther, maybe an investigator, however you want to title it. But I would label you as no more as an entertainer, and that's cool. If someone, watches you for entertainment value, which I still do from time to time. I watch this podcast right here for entertainment, and then I just found some good stuff to go over with you guys. And I just watch this one because I'm a big fan of Tim Dillon, honestly. I really like his comedy style and his joke style and the things he criticizes. And he just so happens to be a little bit into the conspiracy thing too. So that's useful for me reviewing on the channel. But overall, I just am critical of Joe because he's one of the biggest voices in media, and a lot of people respect his opinion. And I just kind of want to, by criticizing and critiquing that, I'm not only pointing out how he's hypocritical and how I think he's not really a truther or, a journalist or an investigator or what have you, or as completely honest as he could be, but also by doing that, I'm not only trying to, I'm not trying to expose him, but I am in a way, but I'm really trying to expose how crooked the system is while doing that. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword. I'm also exposing the corruption of the system at the same time while I'm showing his inconsistencies with it, and at times him straight up defending it. So anyway, sometimes I get long-winded and I feel like I don't even get the point out as well as I wanted to, but I hope y'all get the point. And y'all let me know what y'all thought of this breakdown. Y'all let me know if y'all go watch this interview, or if you've already seen it, what you thought of my breakdown, if there was any key points that I missed that I should have hit on, if I butchered it, if I did good, what you thought. And let me know what your favorite part of the interview was. What was your big takeaway? What did you like? I really enjoyed the Lindsey Graham, get that money. So, yeah, y'all let me know y'all's overall thoughts, what y'all thought of it. If you watched the video this long, I appreciate it greatly. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of this Joe Rogan, Tim Dillon interview. Let me know what you thought of my breakdown again. And if you fuck with the podcast, let a friend, coworker, family member know. And if you have any suggestions for me, leave them in the comments. And as always, I appreciate y'all. It's LOG from Where There's Smoke. Till next time, I'm out.